Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for this tutorial. We are in my second favorite season, my first being summer, but fall is a close second for me because it is one of the coziest seasons and we are going to be painting some fun illustrations that you can grab a friend, grab a family member, and just sit down and be creative together. So today we are going to be painting some things that just remind me of fall, and this is a 3-part series. So this is video 1 of 3, and today we're just going to be tackling the middle row here. I hope you join me for the other videos so you can have a full page of fall watercolors just like this one. So let's go ahead and grab our paintbrushes and get started. So if you're here with me at this tutorial, I'm just so thankful that you are going to be doing this fall illustration with me. We're going to be doing a total of 7 elements on our little sketchbook page. So I'm going to start by drawing out 3 of them for part 1 today, and then you can continue following along with part 2 and 3 in the next videos. So for our first illustration, we are going to be painting a little house in this middle section right here. And so when I do multiple elements on a page, I like to have them pretty evenly spread. So I always start with the middle element. So I'm just going to start marking out where I want my house to lay. I'm just going to mark out the roof first, and I want to make sure we're leaving room on either side of it for the other 2 little illustrations that we are going to put. So this is going to be a pretty small little house or cottage. I wanted to draw this as one of the elements because something that always reminds me of fall is when it starts getting dark a little bit earlier in the day and you're driving by neighborhoods and see the little cozy lights inside of houses. That's why I wanted to put this as kind of our main center because I just love the look of lights inside of houses. So that's what we're going to be drawing here. Now I'm just going through this sketch pretty quickly here, so you're welcome to pause the video if you need more time on the sketch. You can go at this tutorial at your own pace, and this tutorial is also a great one that you can do together with friends. You can put me on mute if you want and just follow along with the video, and always a great time to do something creative together with friends. Okay, so now I'm going to put some little windows here because this is where we're gonna really want our light to shine through. And just do little squares and rectangles to make the shutters. Pretty simple. This initial illustration is probably going to be the most complicated out of the 7 that we do. Takes the most drawing work, I would say. The rest are a lot more simple. I just like to have kind of a main eye catcher when I do multiple paintings on one page, and this one is the main eye catcher for me. And you know what, if you want to pick something else to put in the middle here, you are also welcome to do that. Whatever you want this illustration to be. This is kind of just a guideline. So now I want to add like kind of a few bushes here, maybe to be mums. And of course we have to do some fall trees around the house. So just go ahead and make some blobs above it. It doesn't have to be perfect here. Some on either side. We're going to do some orange and red trees. So just making sure we have multiple trees around the house. Then we'll probably just have a teensy bit of grass to be seen in the front yard. But this is about it for that first illustration. Again, you can pause here if you need to. If you need to adjust the area, I want this to be pretty centered. So now we're ready for our 2 little illustrations on either side, and they're going to be pretty small. So on this side, I'm going to go with a coffee cup. So I'm just going to mark out where I want the top and the bottom to go, and I'm thinking right around here is pretty good. And on this side, we are going to be doing a nice little candle. So again, just kind of marking out where I want the top and bottom to go. So once we have that, we're going to go ahead and just start drawing that in here. It's going to do like a little to-go coffee cup. You can do an actual mug if you're wanting, but I think that these little to-go cups kind of just remind me of going to coffee shops and walking around with a nice warm coffee in hand. I am guilty of getting pumpkin spice lattes. You know, they're not even, I mean, they're good, but they're not actually my favorite. I think I'd rather get something apple flavored. So I think pumpkin spice lattes to me are just maybe more nostalgic, and I get them for that reason. But if it had to go with taste, I feel like I prefer something else. I just feel like sometimes you have to get them just for the reason of fall. So I'm gonna make this a little bit taller. And don't forget to also draw in the little sleeve that goes around. So I'm just gonna put that right here in the middle. Make it extend out a little bit beyond the cup. And then on this side, we're gonna go ahead and draw in our candle. So I'm doing two little ovals. I'm gonna do like a smaller part at the top here and two straight lines. And then we're gonna make it go out into a wider oval. Then we're just gonna make our, again, lines going straight down to make our candle jar. Just like this. This one's pretty simple, especially compared to the house. If you can draw the house, these two are a piece of cake. I always like to start with the harder things first, because then everything seems easy compared to it. I know like some people like to start with easy because then it's kind of like a warm-up, and yeah, that's actually not a bad idea too, but I like for things to get easier. Okay, so and then I'm going to draw like a little rectangle on the front for it to be like a little label of the candle. Then lastly, I'm just going to draw like a little flame in here. I'm just going to leave that part nice and warm once we're doing the painting. And those are the illustrations for part 1. Let's go ahead and get our paintbrushes and start painting. I am going to grab my medium brush here, and it is a size 6. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, but you can find the materials that I'm using on my Amazon storefront. It is linked in my description. I am also an advocate for you can use whatever materials you have at home. You don't have to get all the fancy stuff. You know, I started doing watercolor with the cheapest materials. I used Prang Oval 16, a really cheap watercolor set for the longest time. And you know what? It was fine for what I needed to do. So you can buy the more expensive materials, but it's not a necessity. So we are going to mix up a nice warm and light color because we're going to start with our windows in the house. And once we have that, I'm actually going to wash off my brush in water, and I'm going to just swipe over the entire house here. I love to paint loose, which means I like when colors blend together and don't look too straight lined and architectural. So that's just my style. You don't have to paint this way if you'd rather have it more tight in lines, but I like to have things kind of just look very loose and authentic. So I'm just tapping in colors here, and I'm going to do the roof now, and I want it to be like, I changed my mind. I was going to make it maroon, but I don't want that to clash with our trees. So I'm actually going to make it like a light bluish color. You know what? You can change your mind as you go. I like to think ahead about colors sometimes and be like, what would go well with what it's next to? So yeah, let's just make it this like bluish color here. And I'm just adding that in while the page is still wet. I want things to blend together. And we'll probably go in and darken that up a bit, but for now that is good. And I'm going to revisit my windows a little bit. I'm just going to add some little like maybe deeper oranges around to add that light in a little bit more. I can do that on the door too. Now with the house itself, I'm just going to mix up I'm going to use white and a bit of that yellow. I want it to be kind of cream colored. And I'm just gonna go around the window shutters a little bit with this, just so it's not completely white. And then we're going to take a bit of a purple. We want to mix up a nice like shadow color, because this is what we're going to place in the areas we want it to look like there's a shadow. So this inside part of this outer side of the house, I'm just gonna put the shadow color that I mixed up. And I know it looks a little funky at first. It just takes a little bit of time for colors to settle and blend well. So watercolor is very much a trust the process type medium. I'm actually going to take this color and also swipe it right below the roof here, just to add some more of those shadows. So now I'm actually going to go in and really darken up the roof a bit. I'm taking a nice Payne's gray color, so it's like a nice mix of blue and gray. I don't like to use dark black in my watercolors. I like to try to stick with like purples and blues, just to keep it not too stark. And I'm just really darkening up the roof here by adding this color in. This will help make the house pop a bit more. Let me know what your favorite fall traditions are. I love to go to this apple orchard that's near my house. They have the best apple cobbler, and the best part is it's free to get in. There's a lot of pumpkin patches where you have to pay to get in now, which I'll gladly pay to get in because I love to go to pumpkin patches too. But I love this apple orchard because it's free to get in. Okay, I'm going to take this dark color and again go right under the roof, leaving a little bit of a white line, to be the gutter. And now I'm going to do the shutters like a nice brownish color. So I'm just taking brown and red. So I'm just going to do that here right around the windows. But I want to make sure we're leaving that glow that's in the window. Don't want to get any paint inside. So you might need to wait a tiny bit if your paint is still really wet. That way it doesn't blend into the window. I'm definitely an impatient painter, so I always go at it and find that I need to pause for a second if paint starts to blend a little bit. Okay, I'm just gonna swipe once more over our shadow area that's right in front. It's right on the side of this house. I just want it to look a little bit more blended. Then I'm just gonna go maybe right around our door right here. Just leaving a little square of light maybe for the window. And then we're gonna move on to our fall trees in the back here. So I'm gonna do a nice orange color here. I want it to be pretty. I like to have pretty muted colors, so I always add maybe a little bit of brown in there to just give it a little more earthiness. We're gonna first swipe over the entire tree area on the left side with water before adding the paint in. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that here very lightly. That way when we start adding in our color, we can easily blend into other colors. So now I'm adding in this earthy orange tone, and I'm going to want this to blend more into a red, so I'm adding in just a bit of red to this mixture, and we're going to add that to the right side a bit here. See how it blends very nicely when the paint is wet, and you're always welcome to re-wet the page if you need to. Now I'm actually going to add a tad bit of green at the bottom of it. So I don't want it to be too green. I want it to have a nice warm tone. So I'm making sure it has some red in there, and I'm just tapping that in here at the base. Because if you look at fall trees, oftentimes they have a good mixture of red, oranges, and green in there. Because when the trees are turning, going from green to red. Now let's do the same thing for the trees over here. I'm again gonna just wet the area first. And we're just gonna add a nice layer of water over this area. So I'm gonna go more with maybe a red tone here on the right side. I'm gonna add in our nice little leaves. So I'm just using a dotted motion. at the edge of where I wetted it, so it looks like leaves are sticking out. Again, just mixing up what I have here on my palette, not being too particular with the colors since we've already got so many different tones mixed up. I'm just using really what I have here. So I want this bottom bush to maybe have that more of that yellow in there. So again, just adding whatever colors you are feeling at the moment. The leaves kind of don't have any rhyme or rhythm to how they're changing, so that's kind of how you can paint. You don't need to have a particular order of colors you're going with here. As long as things are blending together and your page is still wet, kind of. And then here at the front, I'm just gonna add a warm green color for our bushes. And I'm just mixing up this green we've got. And I'm just gonna put that here in the front of the house. And then you can just add in some more of that Payne's gray. I'm just gonna put that like at the bottom of the bushes here. That way it gives it some of that dimension. And lastly, I'm just gonna take, you know how the grass in November, at least here in the Midwest, it kind of has this like just orangey tint to it, or brownish tint. So I'm just mixing up a really light and warm color, and we're just gonna put that in very lightly for the grass. Don't need a ton here, just something to maybe signify that the grass is dying. Always kind of sad, but I think the dying colors actually look so pretty. Then I'm just going to add a nice cream color by mixing up white and brown. And I'm just gonna put this little sidewalk maybe here, right up to the doorstep. Just a tiny little rectangle here to be a little sidewalk. And lastly, I'm just gonna add a bit more detail to the house by taking a darker color. Again, don't like to use black, so I'm mixing up like a dark purple or dark red. And I'm just gonna add a few more lines here in the house just to define it a little bit more. I want to, put some under the roof a little bit. And then I'm just gonna add a few more details also around the house. I want to put some lines in the window. So I'm gonna go at the bottom here and maybe around the shutters a bit. I also love when windows kind of have those little lines inside them. So I'm just mixing up a warmer color here, and I'm just going to put a few loose lines here, just like that. Kind of just adds a little bit more to this painting, but you're welcome to also leave them blank if you'd like. And finally, I'm just going to take a nice dark green color here and just do a bit more lines here around like the bushes. I want to make sure that they kind of are separated a little bit, that you can tell that there are maybe different bushes up here in the front. Make sure there's a little bit of a line between the ground and the trees behind. Again, this part is not really necessary, just something I wanted to do to help maybe separate the foreground and the background a bit more. This little illustration kind of reminds me of trick-or-treating, and we don't have a ton of trick-or-treaters that come to my house. I think I live in a little older of a neighborhood, but I still buy candy for myself. And we are done with our first illustration, so let's go ahead and move on to our coffee cup. Now, if you've made it with me so far, I want you all to pat yourself on the back for getting the hardest illustration out of the way for this entire little series. So these two are going to be a breeze compared to this. So let's go ahead and mix up a super light color. I'm just going to have white and orange, maybe a little brown in here to make a cream color. And I'm just going to swipe this over the whole cup here, basically, except for the lid. I'm going to leave the lid blank. And while this paint is still wet, let's go ahead and get a little dimension in here. So I'm just going to mix up like a little purplish red color, maybe a little blue in here. And I'm going to add this to the left side here. Just lightly tap that upwards. want to make sure we've just got a bit of shadowing under the lid as well. I'm going to wipe off my brush here so I can help move around the colors a little bit better. And I think that looks pretty good. Kind of helps the cup look a little bit more 3D. Now I'm going to mix up a color for the lid, and I want it to be almost black, but not quite. So I'm going to again use this Payne's Gray color. And if you don't have Payne's Gray, you can just use a black and blue, maybe a little purple in there just to darken it up. So then for this cup, I'm just going to take a bit of this color and just swipe that all across. Now I'm going to add a bit of water in here because I do want this first wash to be a little bit lighter. And I want this lid to just extend a bit beyond where we painted our cup. So just keep our nice oval shape that we drew out here. It's why it's good to take your time on drawing because it really helps you not panic when you're laying your paint on your paper. It helps you really map out where you're going to put your next brush stroke. So I definitely encourage you to just take time when you're drawing. You don't have to rush through it. Sometimes I feel like I'm like wasting time when I'm drawing. I'm like, that's not the case. It's good to lay out a solid foundation. Okay, so now I'm gonna take a darker color. So I'm just taking that Payne's Gray and just using less water. So when you're using watercolor, if you want it to be lighter, you're going to use more water. And if you want it to be darker, you're going to use less water. So I have a thicker consistency here, and I'm just going to lay that here on the lid. I want to lay in where there's like darker shadows are. So like the top of the lid, I'm going to leave a bit lighter. Then the bottom rim of the lid, I'm adding a nice thin line of this dark color. Okay, now I decided I think it'd be really cute if there's like a little pumpkin on the front. This is totally optional. I just decided to do this. So I'm just going to take an orange color and make the shape of a pumpkin. I'm not being too particular with this. It's going to be like more of a mini pumpkin here. So basically it's an oval. Very easy to do. And I'm going to take a teensy little brown here and make the little stem. It's so cute. I have to be a little careful with this next part because I want to make the sleeve a light brown. And so I'm going to have brown mixed with white here. And I'm just going to tap that in. It's going to blend a bit with the pumpkin, but that's okay. I'm just going to lightly put that in. I feel like this one is a lot more fun to do and easy to do than the house. But I think the house looks so pretty next to it. Okay, I'm probably going to need to re-outline my pumpkin a little bit because that actually definitely blended in. I probably should have waited to put this brown color over, but that's okay. As you can see, I am impatient. Yeah, I completely covered the pumpkin, so I'm going to let that dry for a quick second, and then I'm going to add the deeper orange over the brown. If you need to take a little pause here, go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to take this deeper orange color. I'm going to put even a little bit of red in there to really make that orange pop. And let's try this pumpkin again at the front. Okay. Yeah, that'll do. We're just going to leave that alone for now. And at the very end, even after our candle, I'll go back and add a little line in there. So now let's visit our candle over here. And we're just going to swipe over the entire thing in water. As you can tell, that's how I start a lot of my paintings because I love the wet on wet technique. Just goes with the style of watercolor that I love, which is really well blended, like I said. And I am going to mix up a really light color of yellow and a little bit of orange in there. Like I say in a lot of my tutorials, it's best to start light to dark. And so we are going to start with painting the glow of the candle here I'm going to leave that little bit of flame white, and around it is going to be yellow, even into the candle here. And then I am going to use more of my orange color. We're slowly going to get darker as we go outside of the flame area. So we're going to mix up orange here. And ultimately the color of the jar is going to be more of like a maroon, and so I am mixing up brown and red here, maybe a bit of purple and blue. I love these like dark browns for fall. I think this is like such a nice warm color. So we're going to lightly tap this color in, and again we're going to keep it darker towards the bottom and make sure that we're leaving our glow at the top. So I'm also leaving the label that we drew out. I'm going to leave that like white for now, but we are going to go in with color once we have most of the paint laid on here. So now that we have like a nice base, we are going to mix up a darker color, and this is where if you need to pause to let it dry for a bit, you can definitely do so. You don't want it to blend too much into like the flame area. So I'm just going to take my darker color and start adding lines to the edge here. Now I am not going all the way to the edge of the jar. I'm doing it a little bit on the inside, because if you're looking at a glass, like the darker shadows are kind of on the inside of the jar, and there's like a little bit of a lighter area outside. I've just studied what jars look like a lot because I draw them quite a bit. And so if you have a candle nearby or a jar to look at, that'll kind of help you with this illustration. Okay, I'm going to take a bit of orange and red. I'm just going to go right around our flame here on the left side. Okay, now I'm going to take that dark color we have and kind of go around our label a bit. So just lightly making light lines here, just around where I want the edge of the label to be. Now, you don't have to make it too stark of a line. I'm just kind of putting heavier lines in certain areas. And then I'm just marking out a bit more of the rim of this candle here. And for the label, I'm just going to lightly, not even write anything of any meaning, just kind of squiggle on here. A little lazy to write something actual on there. So before we end this part one here, I'm just going to quickly revisit our little pumpkin over here. I'm just going to add a bit of definition to the bottom of it, just to make it look a little bit more like a pumpkin. There we go. Even just those quick swipes of lines kind of helped it a little bit more. And the very last thing I'm going to do for this tutorial, I always like to add a little bit of a shadow kind of beneath the illustrations that I paint. So I'm just going to put something really light here on the side of it and the bottom. It just adds a little bit of depth to the illustration. So I'm going to do that for both the candle and coffee cup. And there you have it. We painted a coffee cup, a little home, and a candle for part one. I hope you all enjoyed that and learned something new in this tutorial, and join me for part two next week. I hope you all had as much fun painting these as I did. I thought the house illustration was so cozy. That one was definitely the harder one, but if you made it through the end of this video, congratulations to you. I hope that you learned something new from this video, and I'd love if you share your creation with me on social media. You can find me at Emily Winslow Art, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can be the first to watch my next part of this series, where we're going to be painting some pumpkins and mums. So I hope to see you in that next video. Until we paint again next time.